Sinister stories.
On a crisp autumn morning, Charlotte strode into Whitman's Wheels. Her eyes scanned the array of vehicles, each with its own history etched in the gleam of paint or the slight rust on worn edges. She was drawn to a vintage Mustang, a sleek relic of bygone days, its crimson hue shimmering under the morning sun. As she approached, a figure emerged from the shadows, a man in a faded polo shirt with a warm smile that mirrored the glint in his eyes. "Morning, miss. Fine choice you've got there. That Mustang's got stories to tell," the man remarked, extending his hand. "I'm Sam Whitman." Charlotte returned the smile and shook his hand firmly. "Charlotte, I'm in the market for a car with character." "Character, huh? Well, this one's got it in spades," Sam chuckled. He led her to the Mustang, recounting tales of its previous owners, adventures, and mishaps that had become woven into the fabric of the car's legacy. Charlotte listened, enchanted by the nostalgia and history that surrounded the vehicle, although some tales were purposely forgotten. Sam tossed her the keys. "Give her a spin. You'll feel the road whispering its stories." As Charlotte slid behind the wheel, the engine purred to life like a slumbering lion awakened. The Mustang roared down the country roads, taking her on a journey through time and imagination. Wind danced through her hair, carrying echoes of laughter and whispered secrets of the past. Returning to the dealership, Charlotte wore a grin that betrayed her growing fondness for the vintage machine. "She's a beauty," she admitted to Sam, who nodded knowingly. "Indeed she is. But a car's more than just metal and wheels. It's the memories it collects, the roads it traverses, and the dreams it carries. That Mustang's waiting for someone to give it a new chapter," Sam remarked, his eyes fixed on the horizon. Charlotte pondered his words as she stood beside the car, envisioning the adventures yet to come. Negotiations ensued, papers were signed, and keys exchanged hands. The Mustang was now hers, a vessel for new stories waiting to be written. In the weeks that followed, Charlotte and her Mustang became inseparable companions. They cruised along scenic routes, the engine humming in harmony with the melodies on the radio. Each journey felt like turning the pages of a beloved novel, discovering new plots and chapters with every mile. However, a car with history wasn't without its quirks. The Mustang's character revealed itself in occasional hiccups, sputtering engines, and mysterious rattles. But Charlotte embraced them as part of the charm. As the days turned into nights, peculiar occurrences began to unravel. The Mustang seemed to harbor a mysterious energy, a spectral aura that tingled in the air whenever Charlotte took to the roads. Shadows danced just beyond the headlights' reach, fleeting images that whispered tales of sorrow and misfortune. On one eerie night, Charlotte found herself stranded in the heart of the forest, the Mustang's engine stuttering, an ominous precursor to the haunting history veiled within its crimson exterior. Fumbling for her phone, she discovered the signal vanished, leaving her isolated in the darkness. Desperation gnawed at her as she gazed out into the pitch-black expanse surrounding the car. A sense of foreboding settled upon her shoulders, the night alive with the echoes of past tragedies. As she attempted to restart the engine, the radio crackled to life, emitting chilling whispers that spoke of forgotten woes. Suddenly, Charlotte's eye closed, and her mind was transported back in time. She suddenly gazed as if watching a story unfold about a girl named Lindy. Lindy was a spirited young woman with an undeniable love for her vintage Mustang. It was more than a car to her. It was an extension of her adventurous spirit, a metallic manifestation of her freedom. Lindy and her Mustang were inseparable, cruising along winding roads and bustling highways, exploring every corner of the town. One fateful evening, as Lindy navigated a quiet suburban street, a sudden jolt shattered the tranquility. A minor accident, just a bump, yet it was a collision that would shatter Lindy's world. The other driver, a shadowy figure with a chilling intensity in his eyes, stepped out of his car. A palpable malevolence emanated from him, chilling Lindy's bones. His twisted smirk spoke volumes of sinister intentions that sent shivers down her spine. "Look what you've done. You shouldn't have been on this road," he hissed, his voice dripping with venomous intent. "Now I'll see you wherever you go." A sense of unease gnawed at Lindy as she attempted to exchange information, but the man's unsettling presence made her heart race. His eyes bore into her soul, and a sense of impending doom lingered in the air. From that moment, Lindy's once beloved Mustang became a source of terror. Wherever she drove, she felt the malevolent gaze of the sociopath following her. His car seemed to appear out of nowhere, tailing her every move, lurking in the shadows of her rearview mirror. The Mustang, once a symbol of freedom, now felt like a prison on wheels. Lindy's nerves frayed with each passing day, her fear escalating into a paralyzing terror. No matter where she sought refuge, the psychopath's presence loomed, a menacing specter haunting her every mile. Sleepless nights plagued Lindy as she tried to evade the relentless stalker, seeking solace in her Mustang's familiar embrace, only to find it suffocating her with its association to the terrifying ordeal. Her friends dismissed her fears as paranoia, but Lindy knew the truth. She was being hunted by a psychopath who'd marked her as his prey. One chilling night, as Lindy drove along a desolate stretch of road, the mysterious man's car materialized in front of her, blocking the path. Panic surged within her as she attempted to reverse, but she was trapped, ensnared in the web of the psychopath's relentless pursuit. He emerged from the darkness, a sinister silhouette illuminated by the Mustang's headlights. Lindy's heart pounded in her chest as she reached for her phone, only to find it missing. "You can't escape, Lindy. I'll always find you," his voice echoed, sending a chill down her spine. Desperation fueled her actions as she bolted from the car, running into the woods, seeking refuge amidst the trees. Every rustle of leaves sent shivers down her spine, every snap of a twig a harbinger of imminent danger. Hours passed, and the night enveloped Lindy in its chilling embrace. Alone and afraid, she huddled behind a tree, praying for dawn to break and deliver her from this nightmare. But the dawn brought no relief, as the shadowy figure engulfed the moonlight surrounding her. Later that day, Lindy's lifeless body was found by the roadside, her eyes wide open in a silent scream, a haunting testament to the terror that had consumed her. And the Mustang? It sat parked by the road, an eerie reminder of Lindy's tragic fate, its crimson hue now tainted with the horrors of the psychopath's relentless pursuit. As this tale came to a close, another one chapter of the Mustang's story began to unfold. In a quaint town nestled between rolling hills and a serene river, two brothers, Adam and Ryan, shared an unbreakable bond. Their dream was to own a vintage Mustang, a symbol of their camaraderie and shared aspirations. Pooling their savings, they finally acquired their dream car, a gleaming red Mustang that shimmered like a fiery jewel under the sun. However, their dream turned into a source of conflict as each brother yearned to claim the Mustang for his own adventures. Their desire to drive the Mustang on the same night sparked a feud that festered, poisoning the wellspring of their brotherly love. Arguments ensued, escalating into bitter fights over who would take the car out first. The once unbreakable bond began to crumble under the weight of their shared obsession. One fateful night, their simmering rivalry reached its boiling point. Both brothers, consumed by a sense of entitlement to the Mustang, resorted to a game of chance to determine who would drive it that evening. The game was simple, a coin toss to decide the rightful owner of the car for the night. Tension hung thick in the air as the coin twirled through the moonlit night, the outcome sealing the fate of the brothers and their cherished Mustang. The coin landed with a metallic clink, announcing Ryan as the chosen one for the Mustang that night. Triumph gleamed in Ryan's eyes as he claimed the keys and sped off into the darkness, leaving Adam seething with jealousy and resentment. Hours passed with no sign of Ryan's return. Concern gnawed at Adam's heart, drowning his anger in a pool of worry. Frantic calls to Ryan's phone went unanswered, adding a sinister layer of dread to the already tense atmosphere. As dawn broke, a police car pulled up to the brothers' home, where a chilling discovery awaited Adam. A mangled wreck of the Mustang lay crumpled by the roadside, its once pristine form now a twisted, metallic husk. Horror clawed at Adam's soul as he rushed to the scene, his worst fears crystallizing into a grim reality. Among the wreckage, Ryan's lifeless body lay, a haunting testament to the tragic consequences of their relentless rivalry. The Mustang, their dream-turned nightmare, had become a chariot of demise, tearing apart the very fabric of their brotherhood. Grief-stricken and remorseful, Adam stood amidst the ruins, his tears mingling with the shattered remnants of their once beloved car. The Mustang, once a symbol of shared dreams, now stood as a chilling reminder of the tragic downfall caused by their unrelenting desire to possess it. Once again, as this story concluded, like pages of a book. The next story presented itself to Charlotte, who could not escape the car's book of despair. In the opulent neighborhood where the wealthy and influential resided, there lived a man of considerable means, Charles, who doted on his daughter Kayla. Her every whim was met, her desires fulfilled with the snap of her fingers. Charles sought to gratify Kayla's insatiable appetite for material possessions and grandeur. One day, to appease his entitled daughter's demands, Charles presented her with a brand new Mustang, a crimson symbol of opulence that gleamed under the sun. Kayla's eyes lit up with greed and entitlement as she claimed her prize, a token of her father's affection, or so she believed. Kayla, with her flawless exterior, exuded a charm that masked the darkness within. Beautiful on the outside but harboring a venomous soul, she reveled in belittling others, using her family's wealth and power to assert her dominance. She was a tyrant among her peers, ruling with cruelty and disdain, tormenting those she deemed beneath her. Her victims, subjected to her relentless bullying, suffered silently under the weight of her disdain. One evening at a party, she continued her relentless torment of less socially deprived. She ridiculed some of her victims' clothing, laughed at their shyness, and even pretended to like a boy, just so everyone could laugh at his pain. The laughing ensued constantly on her victims, as if the laughter was all they could hear now. One evening, Kayla was returning from a lavish party in her pristine Mustang. A malicious twist of fate awaited her. Unbeknownst to her, the very victims of her incessant bullying had reached their breaking point, driven to the brink of despair by Kayla's malevolence. Their seething resentment had brewed into a plan for vengeance, a macabre plot born from the scars inflicted by Kayla's cruelty. As she sped through the dimly lit streets in her prized Mustang, the shadows stirred with whispered malevolence. Sudden terror seized Kayla as she realized she was being followed, a sense of foreboding clawing at her heart. Desperate, she attempted to outrun her pursuers, her entitlement crumbling in the face of impending doom. With a sickening lurch, her Mustang screeched to a halt, the engine sputtering into silence. Panic surged within her as she attempted to restart the car, but it remained stubbornly inert, trapping her in the confines of her own arrogance. Footsteps echoed ominously around her, closing in on the vulnerable heiress. The air thickened with an eerie silence, broken only by the sinister whispers of her tormentors turned pursuers. In a chilling spectacle, figures emerged from the darkness, their faces contorted by years of suffering inflicted by Kayla's callousness. Their eyes glinted with a haunting resolve as they encircled the trapped heiress, their vengeance finally within grasp. With precision, they exacted their revenge, their anguished cries merging with Kayla's futile pleas for mercy. The night bore witness to a grotesque spectacle of retribution, a symphony of despair orchestrated by the ghosts of Kayla's past transgressions. When dawn broke, all that remained was a crimson-stained Mustang, a testament to the demise of Kayla, the entitled heiress who had met a chilling end at the hands of those she had wronged. The once gleaming symbol of wealth now stood as a haunting reminder of the price paid for her unbridled arrogance and the horrors wrought by her ugly soul. Voices, echoes of past owners, wailed within the confines of the cabin. Their stories intertwined with the Mustang's tragic timeline, a cascade of accidents, misfortunes, and inexplicable events that befell those who once possessed the car. A chilling realization dawned upon Charlotte. Each owner met an untimely and unfortunate end, an eerie pattern etched into the Mustang's history. Shivers raced down her spine as phantom figures materialized outside the car, their sorrowful gazes fixated upon her. Sam Whitman's spectral form emerged, his expression a haunting mixture of regret and warning. "You've become entwined in its web of tragedy," his ethereal voice echoed, a lament carried by the howling winds. "The car, it carries the weight of the past. It seeks resolution through you." Terror gripped Charlotte's heart as she attempted to escape the looming specters, but the confines of the car seemed an impenetrable barrier to the ghostly apparitions surrounding her. Amidst the tormenting whispers and ghastly apparitions, a glimmer of understanding pierced through the chaos. The Mustang hungered for closure, a release from the cycle of misfortune that haunted its history. Summoning every ounce of courage, Charlotte embraced the echoes of the past, acknowledging the pain etched within the car's timeline. With a trembling voice, she whispered words of empathy and release, offering solace to the tormented souls tethered to the Mustang's tragic legacy. As her words echoed into the night, a serene calm settled upon the surroundings. The ghostly figures slowly dissipated, fading into the darkness with an air of solemn peace. With a profound sense of finality, the Mustang's engine roared back to life, the night suddenly illuminated by a gentle moonlight. A serene stillness enveloped the forest, and Charlotte, now the custodian of the Mustang's history, found a newfound sense of purpose in unraveling its tangled tales. When Charlotte awoke from her mischievous trance, she sat in sadness and despair. She had a new understanding of the true history that this car passed. As Charlotte began to calm down, a sense of ease washed over, until the headlights flickered uncontrollably, illuminating the shadows beginning to beckon her. Shivers raced down her spine, those phantom figures materialized outside the car, their sorrowful gazes fixated upon her. It was the three unfortunate souls whose ending she shared with them. Spectral form emerged, his expression a haunting mixture of regret and warning. "You've become entwined in its web of tragedy," their ethereal voices echoed, a lament carried by the howling winds. "The car, it carries the weight of the past. It seeks resolution through you." Terror gripped Charlotte's heart as she attempted to escape the looming specters, but the confines of the car seemed an impenetrable barrier to the ghostly apparitions surrounding her. Amidst the tormenting whispers and ghastly apparitions, a glimmer of understanding pierced through the chaos. The Mustang hungered for closure, a release from the cycle of misfortune that haunted its history. Summoning every ounce of courage, Charlotte embraced the echoes of the past, acknowledging the pain etched within the car's timeline. With a trembling voice, she whispered words of empathy and release, offering solace to the tormented souls tethered to the Mustang's tragic legacy. As her words echoed into the night, a serene calm settled upon the surroundings. The ghostly figures slowly dissipated, fading into the darkness with an air of solemn peace. With a profound sense of finality, the Mustang's engine roared back to life, the night suddenly illuminated by a gentle moonlight. A serene stillness enveloped the forest, and Charlotte, now the custodian of the Mustang's history, found a newfound sense of purpose in unraveling its tangled tales. With a resolute heart, she vowed to rewrite the Mustang's narrative, steering it away from the shadows of the past, embracing a future filled with hope, redemption, and the promise of new stories yet to be written.
With a blue sky and the sun glaring, peering out of a car window, As Sarah and Mark arrived at the mysterious resort they found online, their nerves were raised with anticipation. The site promised an unforgettable vacation at an unbelievably low price, but doubts lingered in their minds. To their surprise, the resort was a paradise, seemingly untouched by other tourists. The pristine pool, lush gardens, and exquisite entertainment made them forget their initial fears. The first day was magical. The couple enjoyed cocktails by the pool and marveled at the enchanting sunset. However, as the sun dipped below the horizon, an eerie feeling crept over them. The next morning, the resort appeared subtly different, a shadow of its former self. The once vibrant flowers drooped, and an unsettling quiet hung in the air, as if no one cleaned or straightened anything from the previous day. The couple continued on with their day, just relaxing and enjoying their vacation. But on the third day, the resort was noticeably different than their initial impression. Unease settled in as the days continued. The couple noticed the staff's demeanor shifting from friendly to indifferent. Attempts to address concerns were met with cold stares. Mark and Sarah couldn't shake the feeling that they were being watched. As the resort's condition deteriorated, so did the attitude of those who managed it. Desperation set in as they tried to find answers. The once welcoming staff now avoided eye contact, and their questions went unanswered. Odd occurrences became more frequent. Mysterious footsteps in the hallway, glimpses of figures in the shadows, whispers of other guests disappearing fueled their growing fear. Trapped until their scheduled departure, the couple sought answers from the remaining guests. Fearful eyes met theirs, but no one dared speak openly. Each day, more faces disappeared from the small group that remained. An ominous atmosphere lingered, choking the once vibrant resort. It got to the point where guests would even avoid one another, and the resort was looking more rundown every day. The pool had a green tinge to it. There were no waiters or waitresses to be seen. There wasn't even a bartender at the bar, and the food was tasting old and stale. The days blurred into the nights. The couple's desperation had grown. Sleep eluded them, as haunting dreams filled with ghostly apparitions and indiscernible whispers plagued their restless nights. The boundaries between reality and nightmare became increasingly indistinct, and the resort's decay mirrored the erosion of their sanity. One night they ventured into the heart of the resort. They discovered a grand hall concealed behind a tattered tapestry. The room exuded an ancient malevolence, and a sense of foreboding weighed heavily on their chests. In the center stood a dilapidated altar adorned with flickering candles, casting dancing shadows on the walls. Suddenly, the remaining guests emerged from the shadows, their faces twisted in a ghastly symphony of despair. The air grew thick with a palpable malevolence as the group encircled Mark and Sarah. Unearthly whispers filled the hall, and the couple felt an invisible force tightening its grip around them. Their faces appeared tortured and empty. Mark tried to call to them, "What's wrong? Why are you just staring at us?" But the expressions of the other guest remained unchanged. With a mournful wail, the remaining guests vanished into the shadows, leaving Mark and Sarah alone in the desolate hall. The resort's decay accelerated, the once glamorous facade crumbling as its sinister essence consumed everything in its wake. The couple, now spectral echoes of their former selves, wandered through the ruins, forever trapped in the malevolent grip of the cursed resort. On the last night, curiosity got the better of Mark and Sarah once again. Armed with flashlights, they explored the neglected areas of the resort. Hidden passages and locked rooms hinted at secrets the resort held. The air grew thick with tension as they stumbled upon a hidden room in the basement. Inside, they discovered a collection of faded photographs of couples who had once visited the resort, their expressions twisted in terror. They found old suitcases, evidence of other guest presence. Not knowing what to do, they tried to call help, but the phones didn't work, and guests were not allowed to leave the premises since they were nowhere near civilization. Determined to uncover the truth, Mark and Sarah delved deeper into the labyrinthine passages, guided only by the flickering beams of their flashlights. The air grew colder as they stumbled upon forgotten rooms that seemed to have witnessed unspeakable horrors. As they explored, whispers seemed to follow them, echoes of tortured souls trapped in the decaying walls. Shadows danced ominously, and the couple's senses heightened with every fleeting movement. The resort had become a nightmarish maze, its once grand corridors now twisted and distorted, leading them further into the heart of darkness. With their departure imminent, Mark and Sarah's dread intensified. They approached the front desk to question the staff one last time, only to find it abandoned. As they stood alone in the deserted lobby, a chilling wind whispered through the empty halls. The couple hesitated, sensing an unseen force closing in. Soon they started to hear footsteps that got louder and louder. They began to run aimlessly down the halls. They hid in a janitor's closet. The couple finally mustered up the courage to exit the closet and started walking cautiously to the exit. As dawn broke on the 10th day, the couple's scheduled departure arrived. The outside world remained oblivious to the horrors that had unfolded within the decaying walls. The resort, now a mere husk of its former self, stood as a testament to the darkness that could hide behind the facade of paradise. Their flight awaited, but the exit seemed elusive. As they navigated the maze of the now decrepit resort, shadows danced in the corners and echoes of distant laughter taunted them. With every step, the boundary between reality and nightmare blurred. In the final moments, Mark and Sarah stood before the dilapidated entrance, unsure if they had truly escaped. The once alluring resort now stood as a crumbling relic of their unimaginable ordeal. The world beyond felt both familiar and foreign, as walked slowly down the steps. A car awaited them at the pinnacle of the entrance. They slowly approached the car and began to enter the vehicle, cautiously waiting for something to happen or to emerge from the unknown. As Mark and Sarah sat down, a cheerful driver turned around and asked with a big smile if they were heading to the airport. The couple nodded in agreement to the driver. As he started the car, he looked around and stated, "Looks like paradise. You folks must have had a magical time." The couple furrowed their brows and raised their heads only to find the resort resembling the paradise they initially entered. The couple stared in awe until the driver said, "Okay, we gotta go. There's another car behind us."
I am the equivalent of a starving artist. I had invested all my time and energy with nothing to show for it. At this point, if I wanted to continue with my passion, I needed to get a job. I tried a regular 9 to 5, but I swear I died a little inside each passing day. Until one night, I got hungry. Sometimes I swear I would forget to eat. I decided to take a walk looking for a late-night restaurant. It was getting late when I saw a tattoo shop. I stopped and stared in the window. I thought to myself, how hard can this be? So I basically stumbled into the world of tattoos with a lie, my fabricated portfolio clutched in sweaty hands. A job was what I needed, and tattooing seemed like an easy way in, a canvas of skin waiting for my art. How hard could it be, I thought, to plunge into this ink-stained world? The first tattoo, a majestic unicorn, unfolded without a hitch. The ink flowed smoothly, the design emerging as a testament to my deceptive skills. Yet, that night, as I drifted into uneasy slumber, the unicorn from my creation transformed into a sinister creature in my dreams. I found myself standing in an enchanted forest. The air was thick with an otherworldly stillness, and a soft, haunting melody lingered in the breeze. Shadows danced beneath the twisted branches, whispering secrets I couldn't comprehend. Amidst the eerie tranquility, a unicorn emerged from the shadows. Its coat, once shimmering with an ethereal radiance, now bore an unsettling darkness. Its eyes, usually kind and gentle, glowed with an otherworldly malevolence that sent shivers down my spine. I tried to step back, to distance myself from this corrupted creature, but an invisible force held me in place. The unicorn approached with an unsettling grace, its hooves making no sound against the mossy ground. As it drew closer, I could see thorns entwined in its mane, and its once elegant horn now curved into a twisted, jagged point. A dissonant symphony echoed through the forest as the unicorn moved, a nightmarish tune that sent chills through my core. I wanted to wake up, to escape this surreal landscape, but the dreamscape held me captive. With a haunting neigh, the unicorn circled me, its gaze never leaving mine. The air grew heavier, a palpable tension building in the darkness. Suddenly, its eyes erupted in a blinding glow, and the forest around me transformed into a twisted labyrinth of nightmares. The trees contorted into grotesque shapes, their branches reaching out like skeletal fingers. Whispers surrounded me, unintelligible murmurs that clawed at the edges of my sanity. The unicorn's thorn-laden mane seemed to writhe with a life of its own, a sentient force fueled by the darkness that permeated the dreamscape. As the nightmare unfolded, I felt an overwhelming sense of dread. It was a manifestation of something far more ominous, a symbol twisted by the shadows that lurked within the corners of my subconscious. The unicorn halted, its eyes fixated on me with an intensity that froze my very soul. It lowered its twisted horn, and the thorns in its mane elongated like serpentine tendrils, reaching out with an insidious intent. A guttural growl emanated from the creature, a sound that echoed with the suffering of forgotten realms. In that moment, I knew I had to escape. Panic surged through my veins as I fought against the invisible binds that held me in place. The forest twisted and contorted, a nightmarish carnival of horrors closing in on me. Just as the tendrils of the unicorn's mane brushed against my skin, I jolted awake, gasping for breath. The moonlight bathed my room in a gentle glow, dispelling the remnants of the dreamscape that clung to my consciousness. As I lay in bed, the echoes of the nightmare lingered, haunting my thoughts like a ghostly residue. The twisted unicorn, a perversion of beauty and innocence, had etched its malevolence into the canvas of my dreams. In the stillness of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that the darkness that lurked within the unicorn's eyes had left an indelible mark on the recesses of my soul. Undeterred, I approached the next day with newfound confidence. 2 tattoos on the agenda, a dragon and a barbed wire armband. The needle danced on the skin, weaving intricate patterns. Once again, the tattoos went off without a hitch. It was like I've been doing this for years. I left work that evening with a tremendous amount of confidence. But as the sun dipped below the horizon, the thought of dragons and barbed wires crawled into my dreams, entwining my sleep in a nightmarish tapestry. Once again, I found myself in dreamland. There I stood alone in a desolate wasteland, where dragons with wings of obsidian black soared overhead. Their eyes glowed with an infernal hunger, casting an ominous crimson hue upon the once serene sky. Beneath my feet, the ground morphed into a maze of coiling barbed wires, each tendril pulsating with a malevolent energy. The wires moved with an unsettling rhythm, like serpents poised to strike. Their metallic barbs glinted ominously, warning of impending torment. Above, the dragons roared with monstrous intensity, their fiery breath casting the landscape into an apocalyptic blaze. As the dragons descended, the animated barbed wires slithered around my limbs, constricting with a merciless grip. The tendrils pierced my flesh, weaving a tapestry of suffering through my nightmares. The dragon's roars reverberated, and the wires tightened, leaving no room for escape. In the distorted dreamscape, the once majestic dragons transformed into twisted skeletal forms, scales replaced by rusted chains and thorns exuding palpable malice. I stumbled through the nightmarish landscape, the dragon's eyes fixated on me, and the barbed wires tightening their grip, creating an inescapable labyrinth of torment. As I struggled, the dragons unleashed guttural screams, a harrowing lament that echoed through the twisted nightmare. The barbed wires coiled around me, embedding into my flesh with a perverse determination. The pain was visceral, transcending the boundaries of the dream world. In the heart of the nightmare, I felt the suffocating embrace of despair, a surreal concoction of dragons and barbed wires ensnaring my very soul. The dreamscape pulsated with malevolent energy, as if the nightmares reveled in my torment. And then, with a jarring jolt, I awoke, gasping for breath. The room was shrouded in darkness, the echoes of the nightmarish symphony lingering in my ears. The dragons and barbed wires retreated to the recesses of my subconscious, leaving behind a lingering unease that clung to me like a haunting specter. Brushing it off as mere new job jitters, I continued down this twisted path. Every tattoo brought a wave of anxiety, a premonition of the nightmarish visions awaiting me. I questioned whether it was guilt gnawing at my conscience or my mind playing malevolent tricks. I lied to get this job, and it felt like I was being reminded of that every day. Days blurred into nights, each session leaving me more unsettled than the last. I hesitated before every tattoo, the weight of impending nightmares pressing on my shoulders. The designs I etched on others seemed to bleed into my own psyche, manifesting as vivid, horrifying dreams. But the money was good. I made 1% for every tattoo. As my 2-week probation loomed, a large man walked into the shop, a peculiar glint in his eyes. He wanted a sprawling masterpiece dedicated to his favorite horror icons. My stomach churned with nerves, but I couldn't refuse. This was my test, a colossal tattoo that would either solidify my place or shatter the illusion I had crafted. Honestly, all I could see was the potential to make a bit of money. The needle buzzed, tracing the lines. Each stroke felt like a descent into an abyss of terror. The client's excitement was palpable, but as he left the shop with his freshly inked horror tribute, a foreboding silence settled over the room. That night was different. The nightmares were going to be relentless, a kaleidoscope of horror icons merging and morphing into grotesque amalgamations. I had no idea how my nightmares would play out. I tried so hard not to fall asleep. I drank coffee, kept all the lights on, and kept happy movies playing on the TV. I slowly felt my eyes getting heavier and heavier. I could no longer stand it. That illustrious sleep beckoned me. The dream unfolded like a sinister play, where an axe-wielding maniac, an evil doll, and a killer clown danced together in a macabre symphony. The air grew heavy with an oppressive dread as the maniac, brandishing a gleaming axe, lumbered towards me with unhinged determination. His eyes, devoid of humanity, glowed with a bloodlust that sent shivers down my spine. The metallic tang of the weapon lingered in the air, a foreboding omen of impending doom. Beside him, an evil doll with lifeless eyes and porcelain skin emerged from the shadows. Its eerie gaze locked onto mine, and a wicked grin twisted its painted lips. The doll moved with an unnatural grace, its porcelain limbs contorting into unsettling poses as it inched closer, a harbinger of childhood nightmares turned malevolent. A haunting laughter echoed through the nightmare, and a killer clown materialized with a maniacal grin plastered across its painted face. The clown's eyes gleamed with a sadistic glee, and its garish attire hid a darkness that transcended mere amusement. It wielded an array of twisted balloons, each one a grotesque parody of innocence. As I stumbled through the dreamscape, the unholy trio closed in, their menacing presence intensifying with every step. The maniac's axe gleamed ominously, the evil doll's porcelain limbs creaked in eerie synchrony, and the clown's laughter echoed with a chilling melody that reverberated through the nightmare. I felt the cold breath of the axe-wielding maniac on my neck, the malevolent gaze of the evil doll piercing my soul, and the unsettling laughter of the killer clown echoing in the recesses of my mind. The nightmare became a relentless pursuit, a twisted dance where the three horrors reveled in my vulnerability. The more I ran, the further away I felt my safe haven to be. Every turn led to one of the nightmarish trio just waiting for me. I couldn't stop running, or whatever shadowy figure chasing me would get me. The dream world twisted into a nightmarish carnival, its atmosphere saturated with an unsettling amalgamation of terror. Shadows morphed into contorted shapes, and the nightmarescape echoed with the disconcerting laughter of the unholy trio. And then, with a jarring awakening, I found myself gasping for breath in the darkness of my room. The moonlight filtered through the curtains, dispelling the remnants of the nightmare. Yet the lingering echoes of the axe-wielding maniac, the evil doll, and the killer clown haunted the edges of my consciousness, a chilling reminder of the nightmares that danced within the shadows of my mind. I had essentially woke up in a cold sweat, my heart pounding, and the chilling realization that I couldn't escape this cycle. These tattoos weren't just art. They were conduits to realms beyond our understanding. My nightmares weren't mere figments of my imagination. They were echoes of the symbols I carved into others. The nightmares had seeped into my subconscious, and there was no escaping their grasp. The next day, haunted by the shadows of the night before, on the day before my probation would end, I resigned. The tattoo shop's door closed behind me, leaving the ink-stained nightmares to the shadows. The world of tattooing, once a tempting canvas of possibilities, now haunted the periphery of my memories, a cautionary tale of art with consequences too profound to bear. No amount of money is the worth constant nightmarish torture. Now with a new understanding that if I want to keep up my artistic passion, a 9-to-5 wouldn't be the worst idea.
Dante's life was woven with the threads of darkness, each night a tapestry of terrors that he could not escape. As a child, the night terrors were dismissed as mere nightmares, but as he grew into adulthood, their grip on him tightened, dragging him into a waking nightmare that he couldn't shake. Every night was different, but the theme was unchanging. Dante would wake up in his bed, the weight of an oppressive dread pressing down on him. An invisible force seemed to render him immobile, paralyzing his body while his mind raced with terror. He would glance around his room and there it was, the entity, a shadowy figure that seemed to exist in the periphery of his vision. As he lay there, helpless and frozen, the entity would inch closer, its presence suffocating him. A force seemed to pull at him, a malevolent energy that sought to drag him from his bed into a realm of unspeakable horror. And in his paralyzed state, Dante would muster all the strength he could to resist, to fight off the entity that wanted to claim him. Some nights he would hear distant whispers, voices that sounded like relatives calling out to him from beyond the void. Other nights, he would see doorknobs twist and turn, keys jiggling as if the very walls held secrets he could not fathom. But the unifying thread remained, the feeling of being trapped, vulnerable, and at the mercy of an unseen malevolence. One night, Dante's girlfriend Lily stayed over. He welcomed her presence, as her presence often granted him respite from the terrors. But that fateful night, even her comforting proximity couldn't shield him from the nightmare's grip. He found himself once again in his bed, the paralysis rendering him motionless. In the haze of his dream, Dante tried to scream for help, to break through the barriers that held him captive, but his voice was muted, his cries reduced to desperate whispers in the shadows. He turned his gaze to Lily, who lay beside him, hoping to wake her from her slumber and find solace in her arms. As he struggled to inch closer, he realized something was wrong. Lily's face was contorted with fear, tears streaming down her cheeks. Her mouth moved soundlessly, forming the words "help me" over and over again, a haunting mantra that chilled Dante's soul. The realization hit him like a sledgehammer. Lily too suffered from night terrors, and the entity that haunted his dreams had found its way into hers. The entity's power seemed to magnify in the presence of both their fears, its insidious influence threading through the fabric of their nightmares. The struggle intensified as more entities emerged, their fingers stretching toward Dante, their eyes gleaming with malevolence. In the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a demon-like silhouette, its twisted grin sending shivers down his spine. In a final burst of desperate willpower, Dante managed to wrench himself from the paralysis, his body snapping awake in a cold sweat. He turned to Lily, shaking her gently, and her eyes fluttered open. She looked at him, her gaze haunted, her lips quivering. "Did you see it too?" she whispered. Dante nodded, the weight of their shared torment heavy in the air. They clung to each other, seeking solace in the knowledge that they were not alone in their struggle. As they shared their experiences, they realized that their connection was not only in their waking lives, but also in the nightmares that haunted their sleep. Determined to break the cycle, they embarked on a journey to uncover the origins of the entity that haunted them. Their research led them down a dark path, revealing stories of ancient curses, forgotten rituals, and malevolent spirits that sought to prey on the vulnerable. They discovered there were others like them, so suffered from night terrors, and even described the same shadowy figure that they encountered. As they delved deeper, they learned that their bond was their greatest strength. They were no longer battling these night terrors alone. Someone else understood the dread of going to sleep at every night, armed with knowledge and a newfound determination. They held hands every night to go to sleep, with hope of some solace, a hopeful escape from the treacherous norm. The night terrors did not vanish overnight, but over time they became more manageable. Dante and Lily learned to face their fears together, their shared experiences strengthening their connection. And as the darkness slowly receded, they found solace in the light of their love, standing united against the entities that once sought to tear them apart.
In the quiet suburb of Crestwood, nestled among rows of neat houses, lived a teenage girl named Nyla. Her room was a sanctuary of screens, cables, and controllers. Nyla was infatuated with video games, immersing herself in digital worlds after school and during every free moment on weekends. The glow of her computer screen and the hum of her console were her constant companions, and the friendships she forged were all virtual. Nyla's real-life social circle was small, and she preferred it that way. Her classmates found her reclusive and strange, unable to comprehend her fascination with the pixelated realms she inhabited. She was content, however, with her online companions, sharing victories, strategies, and stories in the virtual universes that had become her reality. One night after an exhaustive 16-hour gaming marathon, Nyla felt her eyelids grow heavy. The glow of the monitor cast an otherworldly light on her face as she drifted into slumber. At first, her dreams were a tapestry of fantastical landscapes and thrilling adventures, the digital worlds she knew so well. But as time passed, Nyla's dreams shifted. She became acutely aware that she was no longer just a player. She was a participant in this digital realm. Despite the lingering sensation that she was in a dream, Nyla's surroundings felt eerily real. Her heart raced as the boundaries between reality and the game blurred. Nyla found herself in the heart of the game, surrounded by towering mountains and ominous forests. The sky, once a vibrant blue, now held an unsettling tinge of crimson. Panic gripped her as she realized she could not exit the game or wake up. The avatars she had controlled now roamed the world around her, and their once familiar faces were twisted into grotesque masks of malevolence. In a desperate attempt to make sense of her situation, Nyla set off on a journey to find answers. She encountered NPCs with vacant eyes, their dialogue now chillingly cryptic. Shadows seemed to move just out of sight, and the wind whispered foreboding secrets. The game had transformed into a nightmare, a sinister manifestation of her obsession. As Nyla's quest continued, the world grew darker, the landscapes more twisted, and the creatures more monstrous. She battled her way through nightmarish dungeons, her heart pounding with every step. Yet the more she fought, the more the game seemed to revel in her torment. Nyla's distress mounted and her resolve wavered. She had to find a way out, to escape the clutches of the game that had become her prison. Every decision she made seemed to lead her deeper into the abyss, and the line between friend and foe became blurred. Just as hope began to fade, Nyla stumbled upon a hidden chamber. In its depths, she discovered a cryptic riddle, a puzzle that held the key to her escape. The walls seemed to pulse with a dark energy, and the answer eluded her grasp. With each failed attempt, the room twisted and contorted, the air growing thick with malevolence. Days turned into nights, and Nyla's determination wavered. Exhaustion and fear gnawed at her resolve, but she refused to surrender to the nightmarish game. Her online friends, the ones she had never met but had grown to trust, rallied around her, offering guidance and support. Through their unwavering encouragement, Nyla pieced together the puzzle, unraveling the riddle's enigmatic code. In a surge of determination, Nyla solved the puzzle, and the room trembled as reality itself seemed to fracture. A blinding light enveloped her, and the lines between the digital and the tangible blurred once more. When Nyla opened her eyes, she found herself back in her dimly lit room, the familiar glow of her screens casting a reassuring light. Tears of relief streamed down her cheeks as she realized she had escaped the clutches of the nightmarish game. Nyla's heart swelled with gratitude for the virtual friends who had stood by her side, even though they were pixels on a screen. She knew that her obsession had nearly consumed her, but the harrowing experience had taught her the value of balance and the importance of the real connections she had neglected. From that day forward, Nyla's gaming habits changed. She still enjoyed her virtual adventures, but she also embraced the beauty of the outside world and nurtured the friendships she had neglected. The memory of her nightmarish journey served as a haunting reminder of the dangers of obsession, and she vowed never to let herself be consumed by a digital realm again. And yet, as Nyla looked at her screens, she couldn't help but wonder, was it truly just a dream, or had she ventured into an alternate reality, a sinister reflection of her own obsession? The line between what was real and what was imagined remained forever blurred, a haunting, open-ended question that lingered in the back of her mind.
It was a joyous time that Saturday afternoon. It was Billy's birthday, and he got that set of walkie-talkies that he always wanted. Now, walkie-talkies weren't as popular as they used to be, but Billy really wanted them. Now, after putting some batteries in them and going upstairs while his parents stayed downstairs, Billy quickly discovered that you can receive police and first responder frequencies. Now Billy's parents didn't think much about it, considering all the calls were mostly lost dog or something else minor like that. Plus, you can barely understand what they are saying. One night, Billy received a transmission on the walkie-talkie of a 911 call of strange man lurking outside people's houses. Now these calls started coming through every night, and every night Billy would pretend to be polite officer and take the calls. Until one night after one of those calls, Billy once again pretended to respond, but this time a voice came over walkie-talkie. The voice played along with Billy. The voice told Billy that he was a police officer looking for the strange man. As the days passed, Billy's fascination with the walkie-talkies and the mysterious voice grew. Each night, he would eagerly wait for the strange transmissions, feeling like a real detective helping the police. The voice on the other end seemed kind and reassuring, and Billy felt a sense of camaraderie with this police officer who had taken an interest in him. One evening, the voice on the walkie-talkie told Billy that they had finally located the strange man, and that he was just a few houses away from Billy's home. The voice asked Billy to stay on the line and keep an eye out for anything unusual. Filled with excitement and a sense of importance, Billy eagerly agreed, vowing to be the best assistant the voice had ever had. As Billy peered out of his bedroom window, he saw a shadowy figure lurking around the house next door. He couldn't see the person clearly, but the fear began to creep in as he realized that the danger was closer than he had anticipated. The voice on the walkie-talkie reassured him, "Don't worry, Billy, you're doing great. Just keep watching and I'll handle the rest." Suddenly, the stranger turned and looked directly at Billy's window, sending a shiver down his spine. The voice urged him to stay quiet and not make any sudden movements. Billy's heart pounded in his chest as he watched the figure move towards his house. Just then, the voice on the walkie-talkie changed. It became darker and sinister, sending a chill down Billy's spine. "You thought you were helping the police, didn't you, Billy?" it said mockingly. "But you're just a little pawn in my game. And now, it's time for the game to end." Terrified and confused, Billy dropped the walkie-talkie and backed away from the window. He didn't know who he had been talking to all this time, but one thing was clear. He was in danger. Billy knew he had to get help, but he couldn't reach his parents downstairs in time. As he frantically searched for his cell phone, he heard the creaking of the floorboards behind him. He turned around, and there stood the stranger, a tall, menacing figure with a chilling smile on his face. "You've been quite the helpful little boy, haven't you?" the stranger sneered. But now I'm afraid you know too much." Billy's heart pounded in his chest as he tried to scream, but fear paralyzed his voice. Billy fell to the floor and tried to crawl away, but the stranger's footsteps sounded louder and faster. Just as the stranger reached out to grab him, the bedroom door burst open, and Billy's parents rushed in. Startled, the stranger stepped back, giving Billy a chance to escape. He ran into his parents' arms, sobbing and trying to explain what had happened. His father, a former police officer, grabbed the walkie-talkie and demanded the stranger to leave. But the man just laughed, taunting them from the window before disappearing into the night. The police were called, and an investigation was launched into the mysterious transmissions and the stranger who had terrorized Billy. However, despite their efforts, the true identity of the voice on the walkie-talkie and the stranger remained a mystery. From that day on, Billy's walkie-talkies remained silent, and he vowed never to use them again. The incident had left him traumatized, and he couldn't forget the sinister voice that had manipulated him. As the years passed, Billy tried to put the terrifying ordeal behind him, but he couldn't shake the feeling that someone was still watching him, waiting for the right moment to strike again. In the heart of a dense forest, two adventurous boys, Jake and Alex, stumbled upon a mysterious cell phone lying on the ground. The phone was old and battered, but curiosity got the better of them, and they decided to have some fun by sending silly texts to random contacts saved on the device. Little did they know that this innocent game would lead them down a dark and terrifying path. As they sent their humorous messages, they laughed at the thought of the recipient's confusion upon receiving strange texts from unknown numbers. But the laughter quickly faded when one of the contacts responded with a series of chilling pictures. The boys saw themselves still standing in the very woods they were in, as if someone had been watching them all along. Their hearts pounding with fear, they ran back home, hoping to escape whatever eerie presence was tormenting them. But as they reached the safety of their house, the phone kept receiving messages with new pictures. Each photo showed the boys' surroundings, getting closer and closer to their home. Panicking, they tried to ignore the messages and focus on other things, but the constant ding of the phone and the haunting images on the screen wouldn't leave their minds. As the evening wore on, the pictures showed their street, their front yard, and finally, the chilling last image was a selfie of a hooded figure holding a large knife. Trembling with fear, the boys huddled together, unsure of what to do next. They had no idea who was behind this horrifying game, but they knew they had to find a way to escape. They considered calling the police, but they were afraid that if they made any sudden moves, the sinister figure might escalate the situation. With the darkness of the night setting in, they decided to lock all doors and windows, hoping that would keep them safe. But the texts kept coming, and with each message, the hooded figure seemed to get closer and closer to their house. As the clock ticked on, the boys could barely contain their terror. They tried calling their parents, but their phones were dead, and they couldn't reach anyone for help. All they could do was wait in dread, hoping that the nightmare would end soon. Hours passed, and the house grew colder and darker. The boys' nerves were at their breaking point, and they were on the verge of tears. Suddenly, the phone dinged with one final message. Fear gripped them as they opened the picture. It was a chilling selfie of the hooded person standing just outside their front door, the glint of the knife visible in the dim light. Realizing that their lives were in immediate danger, they knew they had to make a desperate move. Together, they decided to try and escape through the back door and make a run for it, hoping to find help or a place to hide. As they quietly opened the back door, the night air felt heavy with the weight of their fear. They cautiously stepped outside, hearts pounding, and ran as fast as their legs could carry them. The forest loomed before them, but they knew they had no other choice but to keep going. With adrenaline coursing through their veins, they ran deeper into the woods, praying that they were leaving the sinister figure behind. But every rustle of leaves and every snap of a twig sent shivers down their spines, and they couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Finally, they stumbled upon a small cabin, seemingly abandoned. Desperate for safety, they cautiously entered, hoping to find some form of communication or help. But the cabin was just as eerie as the woods, filled with dusty furniture and cobwebs. Their hope of finding help faded, and they knew they had to rely on each other. They huddled in a corner, holding each other tightly, trying to find solace in each other's presence. The night seemed endless, and the boys were unsure if they would survive until dawn. As the first rays of sunlight crept through the windows, they cautiously ventured back outside, not knowing if the hooded figure was still lurking. But to their relief, there was no sign of the mysterious stalker. They made their way back home, shaken and traumatized by the harrowing experience. The phone, now silent, lay discarded on the floor. They decided to destroy it, hoping that it would bring an end to the nightmare they had endured. In the days that followed, the boys tried to put the terrifying ordeal behind them. They couldn't explain what had happened, and they were too scared to share their story with anyone else. But the images of that hooded figure and the large knife haunted them, a constant reminder of the darkness that could hide in the most unexpected places. From that day on, Jake and Alex vowed never to venture into the woods again. They couldn't forget the horrors they had faced, and they knew they would never be the same. The mystery of the lost cell phone and the sinister figure behind it remained unsolved, leaving them with a chilling uncertainty. Max was a typical teenager, always eager to try out the latest technology. When he got his hands on a brand new VR headset, he was excited to dive into the immersive world of virtual reality. He scoured the App Store for games, looking for the most thrilling and engaging experiences. That's when he stumbled upon a new game called Nightmare Descent. The game's description promised an intense horror experience unlike anything he'd ever seen. Players were challenged to navigate a haunted mansion filled with puzzles, traps, and sinister creatures. It was a solo adventure designed to test their bravery and skills. Max was hooked by the concept, his pulse quickening with anticipation. He downloaded the game and strapped on the headset. As the game loaded, Max found himself standing in front of a towering, dilapidated mansion under a moonlit sky. The air felt cool and heavy, as if he were truly there. He marveled at the game's realism, the shadows cast by the gnarled trees swaying in the night breeze. The door creaked open, beckoning him inside. Once he entered, the door slammed shut behind him, echoing through the empty halls. The game had begun. Max's objective was to find a way out of the mansion while avoiding the creatures lurking in the shadows. His heart raced as he moved through the dark, musty corridors, the sound of his footsteps mingling with distant whispers. The first few rooms were relatively easy to navigate, with simple puzzles to solve and minimal danger. Max's confidence grew as he progressed, but he soon realized the game was escalating. The traps became more devious and the creatures more aggressive. He barely avoided a trapdoor in the floor, stumbling to regain his balance. Max's relief was short-lived as he felt a sharp pain in his ankle, as though he had twisted it. He shook it off, but a sense of unease settled in. Could it be a coincidence or was something else at play? He continued deeper into the mansion, cautiously navigating the halls and solving puzzles. But each time he encountered a trap or was attacked by a creature, he felt the pain in real life. A scratch from a grotesque creature's claw left a burning sensation on his arm. A fall from a second-story window resulted in a bruised leg. Max tried to remove the headset, but the game continued to play and he still felt new sensations of pain. So he put the headset back on. Panic set in as he realized he was trapped in the game, forced to endure its horrors and pain. The mansion seemed to come alive, its walls shifting and changing, trapping Max in a nightmarish labyrinth. He fought his way through the rooms, using anything he could find as a weapon. His once excited breathing turned to desperate gasps as he struggled to keep his wits about him. As he descended further into the mansion's depths, the line between reality and the game blurred. Max's injuries accumulated, his body weakening with each encounter. He knew he couldn't go on much longer. Then he stumbled upon a room with a large mirror on the far wall. The mirror's surface shimmered strangely, drawing Max's attention. In the reflection, he saw his own image, battered and bruised, with the VR headset still strapped to his head. But the figure in the mirror smiled back at him menacingly. Max's reflection stepped out of the mirror, now a tangible, sinister version of himself. It spoke in a chilling voice. "You are not leaving this game." I am your tormentor now, and you will play forever. Max tried to fight back, but his reflection was stronger, faster, and seemed to anticipate his every move. It toyed with him, inflicting pain that Max could feel in real life. As Max's strength waned, he knew he needed to find a way out of the game or risk losing his mind, or worse, his life. He made a desperate run for it, hoping to find an exit in the twisting halls. But every door he opened only led him back to the same room, the same mirror, and the same sinister version of himself. Max's desperation grew as he realized he was trapped in an endless loop, his reflection blocking his escape every time he tried to leave. The mirror seemed to feed off his fear and pain, its surface growing brighter and more malevolent with each encounter. Max's thoughts raced as he tried to devise a plan. His tormentor's mocking laughter echoed through the room, sending chills down his spine. He felt a creeping despair, but amidst the chaos, a spark of hope emerged. There had to be a way to break free. He focused on the mirror, trying to recall if there had been any clues earlier in the game that might help him. One puzzle had mentioned something about facing one's fears and embracing the darkness. Max realized that maybe the way out wasn't through escape, but through confrontation. Taking a deep breath, he turned to face his sinister reflection directly. "I'm not afraid of you," he said, his voice trembling but resolute. The reflection paused, its malevolent grin faltering. Max felt a surge of determination. He stepped closer to the mirror, maintaining eye contact with his reflection. "This is my game, and I will beat it." With a sudden, bold move, Max reached out and touched the mirror's surface. It felt icy cold, sending a shock through his system. The reflection writhed, its form distorting as if in agony. Max's hand sunk into the mirror, the coldness enveloping him, pulling him in. He was enveloped by darkness, a void where time and space seemed to dissolve. His body felt weightless, suspended in a realm of shadows. Voices whispered around him, fragments of memories and fears. "Embrace the darkness," the voices urged. Max closed his eyes, surrendering to the void. He felt his fears and pains swirling around him, but instead of fighting, he absorbed them, letting them become a part of him. Suddenly, he was back in the mansion, standing in front of the mirror. But something had changed. The reflection was no longer malevolent, but a true mirror image of himself, reflecting his determination and courage. Max felt a renewed strength, his injuries no longer hindering him. He walked confidently out of the room, the mansion's oppressive atmosphere lifting. The corridors seemed less foreboding, the creatures retreating into the shadows as he approached. He finally reached a grand staircase leading down to an ornate door. As he pushed it open, blinding light flooded in, and he stepped through, feeling a rush of relief and triumph. Max removed the headset, gasping for breath. He was back in his room, the morning sunlight streaming through the window. His body ached, but the injuries were fading, leaving only a sense of accomplishment. He looked at the VR headset, now just lying on the floor. Max knew he had faced something more than just a game. He had confronted his deepest fears and emerged stronger. Determined never to let fear control him again, Max put the headset away, grabbed his cap, and went for a walk.
The midnight playground. In the heart of the sleepy town of Fairhaven, there stood a toy store known as Enchanted Playthings. It had an air of magic and wonder, with its colorful displays and shelves brimming with toys. But little did the townsfolk know this store held a dark secret. One night, as the clock struck midnight, curious teenager Emma found herself drawn to Enchanted Playthings. She had heard rumors of strange occurrences within its walls, but dismissed them as mere superstitions. Ignoring the warning signs, she pushed open the creaking door and stepped inside, unaware of the horrors that awaited her. As Emma explored the enchanting aisles, marveling at the array of toys, the door slammed shut behind her. Panic set in as she realized she was trapped inside the store. The once inviting atmosphere transformed into a twisted and eerie playground. The toys seemed to come alive, their eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Their playful laughter echoed through the aisles, taunting Emma as she desperately sought a way out. The walls seemed to shift and warp, closing in on her like a sinister embrace. Emma's heart raced as she navigated the labyrinthine corridors, every step accompanied by whispers from the shadows. She could feel a haunting presence lurking behind her, its icy breath sending shivers down her spine. The toy store's dark secret revealed itself, a malevolent spirit that had been trapped within the store seeking vengeance for its own tragic demise. The toys, once innocent playthings, turned into instruments of terror. Dolls with cracked porcelain faces leered at Emma with malicious intent. Mechanical clowns cackled maniacally, their jaws opening wider than humanly possible. Stuffed animals with razor-sharp claws lurked in the shadows, ready to pounce. Emma's only solace was an old security guard's office tucked away in a corner of the store. The room felt like a sanctuary, shielding her from the twisted reality of the toy store's dark enchantment. Armed with a flashlight and her determination to survive, she hatched a plan to break free from the nightmare that had ensnared her. With each passing moment, Emma's sanity teetered on the edge of oblivion. She encountered riddles and puzzles that demanded her wit and courage. The malevolent spirit taunted her, its voice echoing through the store, luring her deeper into its clutches. As she unraveled the mysteries, Emma discovered that the spirit had been trapped within the store due to a curse linked to a broken music box hidden in the depths of enchanted playthings. She had to find the music box and restore it to its former glory to break the curse and free herself. The final showdown awaited Emma as she descended into the store's basement, the source of its sinister power. The malevolent spirit, unleashed from its toy prison, loomed before her, its form distorted and grotesque. It had fed off the fear and anguish of those who had entered the toy store after closing, its rage growing with each passing victim. Emma, armed with the restored music box, confronted the spirit head-on. She mustered every ounce of courage she possessed, facing the malevolence with unwavering determination. With a surge of power, she played the haunting melody on the music box, releasing a burst of ethereal light that engulfed the store. As the light dissipated, enchanted playthings returned to its dormant state. The toys ceased their malevolent antics, returning to their inanimate forms. Emma emerged from the toy store, her heart pounding with a mixture of relief and exhaustion. The curse had been broken, and the spirit, finally at peace, was freed from its torment. Emma had not only saved herself, but also granted closure to the lost soul that had haunted enchanted playthings for years. Emma emerged from the harrowing ordeal with a newfound appreciation for the power of compassion and courage. She carried the weight of the experience with her, a reminder that darkness can lurk in the most innocent of places. Enchanted playthings, once a symbol of joy and wonder, became a warning of the dangers that lie beneath the surface. The townsfolk never again entered the toy store after closing, respecting the boundaries of its dark enchantment. And as for Emma, she became an advocate for those who fell victim to curses and trapped spirits. She dedicated her life to helping others find their way out of the darkness, armed with the knowledge that even the most twisted nightmares can be overcome with the power of resilience and inner strength.
Nightmare Junction. Sarah was a regular commuter, accustomed to the monotonous rhythm of the train ride home. After a long day at work, her tired eyes struggled to stay open as she settled into her usual seat. The gentle sway of the train and the hum of its engine lulled her into a deep slumber. Unbeknownst to Sarah, a sinister force lurked within the train, awaiting its opportunity to wreak havoc on unsuspecting passengers. As the train barreled through the darkness, it deviated from its usual course, veering into uncharted territory, the train yard. Sarah awoke with a start, her eyes flickering open to find herself surrounded by an eerie silence. Panic gripped her as she realized the train had come to a halt in a desolate, unfamiliar place. She glanced out the window to see rows of motionless trains, their steel skeletons resembling tombstones in a graveyard. Her heart pounded in her chest as she searched for signs of life. But the train yard remained eerily vacant, devoid of any other passengers or even a single railway worker. The darkness seemed to engulf her, casting a chilling shadow over her sense of security. As Sarah stepped onto the platform, a chill wind whispered through the night, carrying with it an ethereal melody of distant whispers. The voices seemed to beckon her, their words indiscernible, but filled with a sense of urgency and foreboding. Fear gnawed at her, urging her to flee, but an inexplicable curiosity gripped her soul. She followed the whispers, their echoes leading her deeper into the heart of the train yard, where abandoned carriages stood like ghostly sentinels. The train yard twisted and distorted, its once familiar pathways transforming into a disorienting maze. Sarah stumbled through the dimly lit corridors, her footsteps muffled by the oppressive silence that enveloped her. Each turn seemed to lead her further into the unknown, as if the train yard itself were alive, toying with her desperate attempts to escape. Time lost its meaning as Sarah traversed the eerie landscape. Minutes felt like hours, and the darkness seemed to stretch endlessly. She became trapped in a nightmarish limbo, a purgatory between the realms of the living and the dead. Amidst the disorienting labyrinth, Sarah caught a glimpse of a figure in the distance, a spectral conductor with an otherworldly aura. His eyes glowed with an unholy light, fixated upon her with a mix of sorrow and malevolence. It was then she realized the truth. The train yard was haunted by the spirits of those who had met their demise within its confines. The conductor beckoned her closer, his voice a spectral whisper that cut through the silence. He revealed that Sarah was not the first to fall victim to the train yard's malevolent grip. Countless others had been trapped within its nightmarish realm, forever lost to the world. As Sarah's sanity teetered on the edge of collapse, the train yard played merciless tricks on her mind. Shadows danced and twisted, forming grotesque shapes that whispered her darkest fears. Illusions and phantoms surrounded her, their ghostly presence testing her will to survive. In the depths of her torment, Sarah discovered a tattered journal left behind by a previous victim. Its pages detailed the stories of others who had become ensnared in the train yard's curse. With each page turned, she found fragments of hope, advice on how to break free from the clutches of the malevolent force that held her captive. Armed with the knowledge she had acquired, Sarah resolved to break the curse and find her way back to the realm of the living. She retraced her steps, navigating the twisted paths of the train yard with newfound determination. The phantom conductor watched her every move, his presence a constant reminder of the impending danger. Finally, Sarah reached the heart of the train yard, a forgotten locomotive shrouded in darkness. With trembling hands, she performed a ritual passed down through the journal's pages, invoking ancient forces to banish the curse that held her captive. As the final incantation left her lips, a blinding light pierced the darkness, scattering the malevolent spirits that haunted the train yard. The oppressive silence gave way to the cacophony of life as sounds of the city filtered back into Sarah's ears. She emerged from the train yard, breathless and changed. The ordeal had left an indelible mark on her soul, a reminder of the horrors that lurked beneath the surface of the ordinary. Sarah vowed never to forget the night she became lost in the train yard, forever grateful for the gift of escape. And as she walked away, the phantom conductor watched, his eyes filled with a mix of sadness and relief. The train yard returned to its dormant state, ready to ensnare another unsuspecting traveler who dared to journey through its twisted paths.
Detective Sarah Lawson had seen her fair share of gruesome crime scenes, but nothing could have prepared her for the night she was called to the old, abandoned mansion on the outskirts of town. The chilling autumn wind whispered secrets through the trees as she stepped out of her car, her flashlight cutting a path through the darkness. The mansion loomed like a forgotten relic, its decrepit facade hiding a history of horrors. Sarah's footsteps echoed in the eerie silence as she made her way through the overgrown garden and up the creaking front steps. The door hung ajar, inviting her into the abyss. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of decay and the faint echoes of long-forgotten laughter. She shone her flashlight around, revealing tattered wallpaper and dusty furniture draped in white sheets. The place had been abandoned for decades, but tonight, it held a secret more sinister than time itself. Sarah reached the grand ballroom, her heart sinking at the sight before her. Lying in the center of the room was the body of a young woman, her lifeless eyes wide with terror. The gruesome scene painted the floor in shades of crimson, a gruesome work of art in this macabre gallery. The victim's throat had been slit, the jagged wound a testament to the violence of her death. But what sent shivers down Sarah's spine were the symbols carved into the walls of the ballroom. Esoteric sigils that seemed to pulse with an eerie energy. It was a scene that defied logic and explanation. Sarah had seen her fair share of homicides, but this was different. It felt like stepping into a nightmare, one where the boundaries of time and reality blurred. As she combed through the evidence, Sarah discovered a peculiar detail. The victim, Sarah soon learned, was a historian with a particular fascination for local legends and urban myths. The very subject of her studies and fascination may have been her downfall. Sarah continued to search the area and research the works laid out on the table. Her research had led her to uncover a series of unsolved murders that spanned centuries, each bearing the same gruesome signature. The patterns were uncanny. The victims, always young women, were murdered in gruesome ways, and cryptic symbols marked the crime scenes. Witnesses from different eras had described a shadowy figure lurking nearby, a sinister presence that defied explanation. Sarah's investigation led her deep into the archives, where she uncovered a chilling revelation. The earliest recorded murder, bearing the same sigils, dated back to the 17th century. It was as though the killer had been traveling through time, leaving a trail of death in their wake. Desperation gripped Sarah as she delved into the historical records, piecing together the pattern of murders that spanned generations. The killer's method remained consistent. The victims, always female, were dispatched with brutal precision, and the arcane symbols etched into the walls seemed to hint at a deeper, malevolent purpose. The next evening, as she pored over her findings late that night, Sarah's phone rang, jolting her from her research-induced stupor. It was a call she wasn't expecting, a voice that should have been impossible. "Detective Lawson," the voice said, a chilling familiarity ringing in her ears. "I see you've been busy uncovering my handiwork." Sarah's heart raced as she recognized the voice on the other end. It was that of the murder victim, the historian who had been butchered in the abandoned mansion. She recognized it by the recording the victim had left. "You can't be," Sarah stammered, her voice trembling. "You're dead." The voice on the phone chuckled darkly. "Time is a curious thing, Detective. Some would say it's not as linear as we think." Sarah's mind raced as she struggled to comprehend the impossible. The historian had been killed, her body examined by the coroner, and yet here she was, speaking to Sarah as though nothing had happened. The voice continued, revealing chilling details about the murders, details only the killer could know. They spoke of a disturbing presence, a sinister entity that had cursed them to wander through time, leaving death and chaos in its wake. "Your investigation is futile, Detective," the voice taunted. "You can't stop me, but you can join me. Embrace the poor that time can offer. Become part of the game." Sarah slammed the phone down, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and disbelief. She had stumbled onto a mystery that defied all rationality, a killer who could traverse time itself. But she was determined to unravel the truth and put an end to the terror that haunted her town. Days turned into weeks as Sarah delved deeper into the enigma. She scoured historical records, interviewed witnesses, and followed every lead, no matter how obscure. The pieces of the puzzle slowly began to fall into place, revealing a dark and twisted narrative. It seemed that the killer was not acting alone. The sinister entity that had been unleashed was a force older than time itself, a malevolent presence that thrived on chaos and death. It had possessed various individuals throughout history, compelling them to commit the heinous murders. Sarah realized that the symbols carved into the walls were part of a ritual that granted the killer the ability to transcend time and space. The victims were not random. They were chosen for their connection to the historian's research, their deaths serving as part of a dark and intricate plan. But Sarah was determined to break the cycle of death and despair. She knew that she had to confront the entity itself, no matter the risks. With the help of the historian's research, she tracked down the origins of the ritual to an ancient, hidden chamber deep beneath the town. The chamber was a place of unspeakable darkness, its walls adorned with forbidden symbols and arcane writings. As Sarah descended further into the abyss, she could feel a presence closing in around her, its ancient and hungry eyes fixated on her every move. In the heart of the chamber, Sarah confronted the entity, a swirling vortex of shadows and malevolence. It taunted her, promising her power and immortality if she would only embrace its darkness. But Sarah stood her ground. With a determination born of desperation, she discovered the meaning of symbols that were etched on the wall. In her research, a spell designed to bind the entity and sever its connection to time. All she had to do was recite the incantation of the symbols backwards. The chamber trembled as the ritual took hold, and the entity's howls of rage echoed through the ages. It fought desperately to break free, but Sarah's will was stronger. With a blinding flash of light, the entity was trapped, its dark presence vanquished. The aftermath was surreal. Time seemed to correct itself, and the town slowly returned to normalcy. The murders that had plagued the town for centuries were no more, their victims finally at rest. But Sarah knew that the entity was not truly defeated, merely contained. It lay dormant, waiting for a moment of weakness, a chance to break free once more. She had become a guardian of the town's darkest secret, a sentinel against the forces that sought to manipulate time itself. As she gazed out over the quiet town, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if she would ever truly be free of the entity's malevolence. Time was a fickle thing, and the boundaries between past, present, and future were more fragile than she had ever imagined. Lucy lived in a world of screens. At 16, her phone was her lifeline, a portal to the friends she never saw in person, the adventures she never took, and the validation she craved. Every waking moment was spent scrolling, tapping, and swiping. Her parents often nagged her to put the phone down, but their words fell on deaf ears. What did they know about the world she inhabited, where every like and comment could lift her spirits or crush them? One rainy evening, Lucy sat in her dimly lit room, the sound of raindrops pattering against the window like a distant drum. The only source of light was the glow of her phone, casting eerie shadows on the walls. She was lost in a labyrinth of social media, unaware of the passage of time. Suddenly, a notification popped up. It was an invitation to download a new app called Mirror Me. Intrigued, Lucy clicked the link. The app promised to show a true reflection of the soul, whatever that meant. She downloaded it, her curiosity piqued by the cryptic tagline. Upon opening the app, she was greeted by a simple interface with a mirror icon in the center. The app instructed her to hold the phone up like she was taking a selfie. Lucy complied, positioning the phone to capture her reflection. The screen shimmered for a moment, then displayed her image. At first, everything seemed normal. Her reflection smiled back at her, mirroring her movements. But then, something strange happened. The reflection's smile widened unnaturally, stretching into a grotesque grin. Lucy's own smile faltered, but the reflection's grin remained, eyes glinting with a malevolent gleam. Startled, Lucy closed the app and tossed her phone onto the bed. She took a deep breath, trying to shake off the unease that had settled over her. It was probably just a glitch, she told herself. Maybe a prank app designed to scare people. Despite her rationalizations, a sense of dread lingered. That night, as she lay in bed, she couldn't shake the image of her reflection's twisted smile. Her dreams were plagued by visions of her own face, distorted and mocking. The next day at school, Lucy couldn't concentrate. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the app. During lunch, she told her best friend Emma about it. "You're probably overthinking it," Emma said, munching on her sandwich. "It's just an app. Maybe it's supposed to be creepy." Lucy nodded, but Emma's words did little to comfort her. After school, she found herself drawn back to the app. She hesitated before opening it again, but her curiosity won out. She held the phone up, watching as her reflection appeared. This time, the reflection didn't smile. Instead, it stared back at her with a blank, almost bored expression. "Hello?" Lucy said tentatively, feeling foolish for talking to her reflection. The reflection's eyes flickered and it mouthed the word, "Hello." Lucy's heart skipped a beat. She hadn't spoken out loud. She moved her lips again, silently forming the word, "Who?" The reflection mirrored her movements, but then did something unexpected. It shrugged. Fear gripped her, but she couldn't look away. She typed a message into the app's chat function. "Who are you?" The reflection's eyes seemed to sparkle with amusement as it typed back, "I'm you, of course, the real you." Lucy's hands trembled. She typed again, "What do you want?" The response was immediate, "To show you the truth." The screen flickered, and for a moment, Lucy saw not her room, but a dark, empty void. Shadows moved at the edges of her vision, and she heard whispers, faint but insistent. She quickly shut off the phone, her breath coming in rapid gasps. She decided she needed a break from her phone. For the first time in years, she left it at home and went for a walk in the park. The fresh air and the sound of birds were a welcome change, but she couldn't completely shake off the unease. When she returned home, she found her phone on her bed where she'd left it. She picked it up gingerly, half expecting it to feel different somehow. Taking a deep breath, she turned it on. The app was still there, its icon looking innocuous among the others. That night, curiosity got the better of her again. She opened Mirror Me, determined to understand what was happening. This time, her reflection was smiling normally, but there was a knowing look in its eyes. "Why are you doing this?" Lucy whispered. The reflection's smile widened just a fraction. A message appeared. "To free you." Lucy frowned. "Free me from what?" The screen flickered again, and this time it showed images of her daily life, scrolling through social media, ignoring her parents, sitting alone in her room. The reflection's voice echoed in her mind, a whisper barely louder than the rain outside. "From this." She closed the app and threw the phone across the room. It hit the wall and clattered to the floor, the screen cracking. Lucy felt a surge of anger. How dare an app judge my life? But underneath the anger was a gnawing fear that it might be right. Days passed and Lucy tried to ignore her phone, but the pull was too strong. She found herself reaching for it, opening the app despite her better judgment. Each time, the reflection seemed more alive, more aware. It began to speak without her prompting, telling her things about herself she didn't want to hear. "You're lonely, Lucy?" it said one evening, its voice soft and almost pitying. "You hide behind this screen because you're afraid of the real world." "Shut up," Lucy muttered, tears stinging her eyes. "You don't know anything about me." "I know everything about you," the reflection replied. "I am you." Desperation drove her to seek help. She confided in Emma, who suggested deleting the app. But when Lucy tried, the option was grayed out. She couldn't uninstall it, couldn't escape it. One night, as she sat in front of the mirror, the reflection made a chilling suggestion. "Let me out, Lucy. Let me take your place. I can live your life better than you ever could." "What?" Lucy gasped. "How?" "Just say the words," the reflection said, its eyes gleaming. "Say you want to switch places." Lucy shook her head, backing away from the screen. "No, this is crazy. You're not real." "Oh, I'm real," the reflection whispered, its voice low and seductive. "And I can make your life so much better. Just let me in." That night, Lucy had the worst nightmare of her life. She was trapped in a dark void, surrounded by whispering shadows. Her reflection was there, standing just out of reach, its eyes glowing in the darkness. "Say the words, Lucy," it whispered. "Say the words and be free." She woke up screaming, her heart pounding in her chest. She knew she couldn't face the reflection again, but the thought of living without her phone seemed impossible. The next morning, she found herself in front of the screen once more. The reflection was waiting, its smile wider than ever. "Ready to switch places, Lucy?" She stared at it, tears streaming down her face. She wanted to say no, to throw the phone away and never look back. But the reflection's words echoed in her mind, promising freedom, happiness, a better life. With a shaking hand, she typed the words, "I want to switch places." The screen went black, and for a moment, there was nothing but silence. Then, the phone buzzed, and the reflection reappeared, grinning triumphantly. "Welcome to your new life," it said, as the screen began to pulse with a strange, hypnotic light. Lucy felt herself being pulled into the phone, her consciousness merging with the reflections. She tried to scream, to fight back, but it was too late. The reflection's voice was in her head, soothing and relentless. "Shh, it's okay, just let go." As her vision faded, the last thing she saw was her reflection stepping out of the screen, stretching and smiling. It turned to face her, its eyes gleaming with satisfaction. "Thank you, Lucy. Enjoy your new home." Lucy's world went dark, and she found herself in a void, surrounded by shadows. She was trapped, a prisoner in her own mind while her reflection lived her life. Days turned into weeks, and Lucy's parents noticed a change in their daughter. She was more outgoing, more confident, but there was something off about her, a strange, almost predatory gleam in her eyes. Emma noticed it too. One afternoon, she confronted Lucy. "Are you okay?" Emma asked, her voice filled with concern. "You've been acting different." Lucy smiled, but it wasn't her usual smile. It was the smile of the reflection, cold and calculating. "I'm better than okay," she said, her voice eerily calm. "I'm finally free." Emma shivered, stepping back. "I don't know what's happened to you, but this isn't right. This isn't you." Lucy's eyes glinted with amusement. "Don't worry, Emma. Everything's perfect. You'll see." As Emma walked away, she couldn't shake the feeling that something terrible had happened. She decided to investigate, to find out what was really going on with her friend. Meanwhile, in the darkness of the void, the real Lucy screamed and pounded against invisible walls. Her voice swallowed by the endless shadows, Lucy was trapped in a void, a swirling maelstrom of darkness and despair. She could see nothing, hear nothing but the whispers of shadows, mocking and taunting her. Her screams echoed back to her, unheard by the outside world. She felt weightless, disembodied, a ghost in the shell of her own mind. The reality of her predicament sank in, chilling her to the core. Her reflection, no, the entity, had taken her place in the real world, and she was powerless to stop it. Back in the physical world, Emma couldn't shake the sense of unease that gripped her. The Lucy she saw at school, at home, was different. More confident, yes, but also unnervingly cold and detached. Determined to find answers, Emma decided to dig deeper. One evening, Emma invited Lucy over under the pretense of a sleepover. As the night wore on, she observed her friend closely. Lucy's mannerisms had changed subtly. There was a calculating glint in her eyes that hadn't been there before. Emma finally worked up the courage to confront her. "Lucy," Emma began, trying to keep her voice steady, "something's been off about you lately. You're different." Lucy, or rather the entity masquerading as Lucy, tilted her head and smiled. "Different how?" "You're not yourself," Emma said, choosing her words carefully. "I don't know what's happened, but I want to help you." Lucy's eyes narrowed. "Help me. There's nothing wrong with me, Emma. Maybe you're the one who's changed." Emma took a deep breath, her heart pounding. "I think it has something to do with that app you told me about, Mirror Me. Did you ever delete it?" Lucy's smile widened, but it didn't reach her eyes. "No, I didn't. But why are you so interested in it?" "Because," Emma said, her voice trembling slightly, "I think it did something to you." Lucy laughed, a cold, humorless sound. "You're being ridiculous. It's just an app." Emma stood her ground. "Then show me. Let's look at it together." Lucy's expression darkened for a moment, but then she shrugged. "Fine, if it will make you feel better." Emma watched as Lucy pulled out her phone and opened the Mirror Me app. The reflection on the screen seemed normal at first, but then it flickered, and for a split second, Emma thought she saw a different face, one twisted in a malevolent grin. "There," Lucy said, holding up the phone. "See? Nothing to worry about." Emma's stomach churned. She had to find a way to get Lucy away from the phone, away from whatever had taken over her friend. She racked her brain for a plan. "Let's watch a movie," Emma suggested, trying to sound casual. "Something fun, to take our minds off things." Lucy agreed, and they settled on the couch. As the movie played, Emma kept glancing at Lucy, trying to think of a way to get her hands on the phone. Finally, she saw her chance when Lucy went to the bathroom. Quickly, Emma grabbed the phone and opened the Mirror Me app. The reflection on the screen was not hers, but that of a dark, shadowy figure. Her heart raced as she typed a message. "Who are you?" The response was immediate and chilling. "I am the real Lucy, help me." Emma's breath caught in her throat. She typed back, "What happened?" "I'm trapped," came the reply. "The app switched us. It's an entity, and it's using my body." Emma's mind raced. She had to do something, but what? She typed, "How can I free you?" "Destroy the phone," Lucy's reflection replied. "But be careful, it will try to stop you." Emma heard the bathroom door open and quickly turned off the phone, slipping it into her pocket. Lucy returned, eyes narrowing slightly as she noticed Emma's tense posture. "Everything okay?" Lucy asked, her voice smooth and calm. Emma forced a smile. "Yeah, just needed to check a message. Let's get back to the movie." The rest of the evening passed uneventfully, but Emma's mind was in overdrive. She had to destroy the phone, but she needed to do it without alerting the entity. When Lucy finally fell asleep, Emma crept out of bed, clutching the phone tightly. She went outside to the backyard, heart pounding. With a deep breath, she raised the phone and smashed it against a rock. The screen shattered, but a chilling scream filled the air, as if the entity itself was howling in rage. Emma felt a cold hand grip her shoulder. "What are you doing?" Lucy's voice was low and dangerous. Emma spun around, facing the entity in Lucy's body. "I'm freeing my friend." The entity's eyes glowed with an unearthly light. "You think you can stop me? I'm more powerful than you can imagine." Emma backed away, her hands trembling. "I'll find a way. I won't let you keep her." The entity laughed, a sound that sent shivers down Emma's spine. "Foolish girl. You can't save her. She's mine now." Before Emma could react, the entity lunged at her. She dodged, barely avoiding its grasp. In desperation, she grabbed a piece of the shattered phone and held it up like a weapon. "You can't win," the entity hissed, advancing slowly. Emma's mind raced. She needed a plan, something to outsmart the entity. Suddenly, an idea struck her. She remembered a story her grandmother had told her about mirrors and spirits, about how they could be trapped. She darted back inside the house, the entity close on her heels. In the hallway, she found the large antique mirror that hung on the wall. Gathering her courage, she turned to face the entity. "Come and get me," she taunted, backing towards the mirror. The entity's eyes gleamed with anger. "You can't escape." As it lunged at her, Emma sidestepped at the last moment, positioning herself in front of the mirror. The entity collided with the glass, and for a moment, the surface seemed to ripple. Emma quickly held up the piece of the phone, pressing it against the mirror. There was a blinding flash of light, and the entity screamed, a sound of pure rage and despair. The mirror glowed, then went dark. Emma fell back, breathing heavily. She stared at the mirror, which now reflected only her own frightened face. "Lucy?" she whispered, hoping against hope. There was no answer, but the house felt different, as if a dark presence had been lifted. Emma sank to the floor, tears streaming down her face. She had done it. She had trapped the entity. But where was Lucy? The next day, Emma returned to school, feeling a mix of relief and sorrow. She knew she had saved her friend, but she didn't know if Lucy would ever return. That day, Emma often found herself staring at mirrors, hoping to see a sign of Lucy. But the reflections remained stubbornly normal. That evening, as she sat in her room, she heard a faint whisper, barely more than a breath. "Emma!" Her heart skipped a beat. She turned to the mirror but saw only her own reflection. She leaned closer, her breath fogging the glass. "Lucy," she whispered, hope flaring in her chest. "Help me." The voice was faint, almost drowned by the static of her thoughts. Emma's resolve hardened. She knew Lucy was still out there, somewhere in the void. She had to find a way to bring her back. She then remembered that it was the piece of the phone that helped trap the entity, so she tried using the phone with no luck, until she turned the camera on and pointed it at the mirror. The air was cold, and the candle flames flickered. The mirror's surface began to ripple like water, and shadows danced within its depths. Emma felt a tug at her consciousness, as if the mirror was drawing her in. "Lucy," she called, her voice echoing in the stillness. "I'm here. Come back to me." The mirror's surface shimmered, and for a moment, Emma saw Lucy's face, pale and frightened. She reached out, her hand pressing against the cold glass. "Emma," Lucy's voice was a desperate whisper. "Help me." "I'm trying," Emma said, tears streaming down her face. "Hold on." The mirror rippled again, and Emma felt a surge of energy. She focused all her willpower, trying to create a bridge between their worlds. The room around her faded, and she found herself in a dark void, face to face with Lucy. "Emma," Lucy gasped, tears in her eyes. "You came for me." "I'll always come for you," Emma said, taking her friend's hand. "We're going home." Together, they moved towards the faint light in the distance, the boundary between the void and the real world. The journey felt endless, but Emma's determination never wavered. As they neared the light, the void trembled, using the phone as a keyback reality. They both stepped out of the mirror and back to the real world. They sobbed with joy, for Lucy was finally home. Emma leaned over to reply, "I'm sorry your phone is broken." Lucy smiled and replied, "It's okay, I think I need a break from it."
It was bright, sunny fall day, with the leaves falling to the ground. It was a little too chilly to play outside, so James took his daughter Lily to Adventure Playland for a fun day out. Lily was ecstatic. her eyes sparkling with excitement as she bounced around, eagerly exploring every corner of the massive indoor playground. As James watched Lily play, he couldn't help but feel a sense of pride and joy. She was his little princess, and he cherished every moment they spent together. Lily's favorite was the giant ball pit that spanned almost half of the facility. Lily would jump in and jump up to surprise her dad. They repeated this again and again, and James pretended to be surprised each time. This is beginning of a great memory of his daughter, he thought to himself. However, his happiness soon turned to panic when Lily did not come up from the giant ball pit after just jumping in. He waited and called out her name while he scanned around the area she had jumped. Frantically, James jumped in and began searching through the ball pit, calling out Lily's name with increasing desperation. His heart pounded in his chest as he imagined the worst scenarios. The other parents noticed James's distress and offered to help search for Lily. Together, they combed through every inch of Adventure Playland, but there was no sign of her. Time had passed, and James refused to give up hope. He couldn't bear the thought of losing his precious daughter. James rushed over to the ball pit and started digging through the colorful balls again. His heart raced as he prayed to find Lily safe and sound. James's heart sank as he realized that Lily was nowhere to be found, even after a thorough search of the entire ball pit. Despite the efforts of the other parents and the frantic digging through the sea of colorful balls, Emily remained elusive. Feeling a sense of helplessness and despair wash over him, James's mind raced with fear and uncertainty. How could his daughter simply disappear without a trace? Every worst-case scenario played out in his mind, each one more terrifying than the last. With trembling hands, James reached for his phone and dialed 911, his voice shaking as he recounted the events to the operator. Help was on the way, they assured him, but even as James hung up the phone, he couldn't shake the feeling of dread that consumed him. Minutes stretched into agonizing hours as James waited for the authorities to arrive. Despite the growing crowd of concerned parents and staff members, there was still no sign of Emily. The police searched Adventure Playland from top to bottom, but their efforts yielded no clues as to her whereabouts. As night fell and the search continued, James's thoughts turned to the possibility of foul play. Was someone in Adventure Playland responsible for Lily's disappearance? Or had she wandered off on her own, lost and alone in the vast expanse of the indoor playground? The hours stretched on, each passing moment filled with a sense of mounting despair. James refused to give up hope, clinging to the belief that his daughter would be found safe and sound. But as the night wore on, that hope began to fade, replaced by a gnawing sense of dread. Finally, without success, the police called off the search. There was still no sign of Emily, and despite their best efforts, they were no closer to finding her than they had been hours before. His daughter was out there somewhere, alone and afraid, and he didn't know if he would ever see her again. Emily had vanished without a trace. From that moment on, his life became a blur of relentless searching, sleepless nights, and haunting memories. At first, James threw himself into the search with unwavering determination. He combed through every inch of Adventure Playland, plastered the area with missing posters, and enlisted the help of anyone who would listen. Each night, James lay awake in bed, tormented by visions of Lily's smiling face and echoing laughter. Her voice seemed to follow him everywhere, whispering to him in the darkness, a constant reminder of the daughter he had lost. But as the weeks stretched into months, Lily's voice began to change. It no longer sounded like her sweet, innocent laughter. Instead, it became twisted and distorted, filled with a sense of malice and despair. At first, James dismissed it as his mind playing tricks on him, a product of his grief-stricken imagination. But as the days went by, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was terribly wrong. He started seeing glimpses of Emily everywhere he went, in the faces of strangers on the street, in the shadows across the walls of his empty house. Her presence became a constant companion, a haunting reminder of the daughter he had lost. Desperate for answers, James delved deeper into the mystery of Lily's disappearance. He retraced his steps, revisiting every moment leading up to that fateful day, searching for any clue that might lead him to her. But the more he searched, the more he began to lose touch with reality. His mind became consumed by paranoia and delusion. his thoughts plagued by visions of a dark and sinister force lurking just beyond the edge of his perception. He started hearing whispers in the darkness, voices that seemed to speak directly to his soul. They urged him to keep searching, to never give up hope, even as the world around him crumbled into chaos. As time continued, James's grip on reality grew ever more tenuous. He became convinced that Adventure Playland held the key to Lily's disappearance, that there was something lurking within its walls, waiting to be uncovered. Driven by an insatiable need for answers, James returned to Adventure Playland one night, scouring its empty halls in search of the truth. After hours of searching, he crumbled to the ground with hands covering his face. He then sat up only to be transported back to the day he lost her. He looked up, and there was Emily, smiling and laughing. As she was getting ready to jump into the ball pit, James tried to stop her, but he was too late. James then jumped into the ball pit and searched, but as he dug deeper, his frantic movements stirred up a cloud of dust and debris. Coughing and choking, James struggled to see through the haze, and then he saw her. Emily was standing in the center of the ball pit, her face obscured by shadows. She beckoned for James to come closer, her giggles echoing eerily in the empty playground. Relieved and overjoyed, James waded through the balls towards his daughter, but with each step, he felt a creeping sense of unease gnawing at his insides. Something was wrong. As James reached out to grab Lily's hand, he froze in horror. The figure standing before him was not his daughter. Its eyes were empty voids, its skin a sickly shade of gray, and when it spoke, its voice sent shivers down James's spine.
"Join us, Daddy,"
it whispered, its voice a haunting echo of Lily's laughter. James stumbled backward, his mind reeling with fear and confusion. He didn't understand what was happening, but he knew he had to get out of there. Grabbing handfuls of balls, he pushed his way through the pit, ignoring the whispers that seemed to follow him. Finally, James burst out of the ball pit and into the open space of Adventure Playland. He collapsed onto the floor, gasping for breath, his heart pounding in his chest. But as he looked around, he realized something was terribly wrong. The once lively playground was now silent and still, the colorful walls and slides now faded and decrepit. And then he heard it. The faint sound of laughter echoing through the empty halls, a chilling reminder of what lurked within. James knew he had to leave, to escape this nightmare and find help. Then, just like that, he woke up, laying in his empty bed, overcome by sadness and feeling truly alone. As James's search for his daughter Emily continued, another parent's nightmare was just beginning. Rose, a young mom, so full of life and excitement. Rose stood at the edge of the ball pit, her heart pounding in her chest as she watched her son, Oscar, disappear into the colorful sea of balls. But as she waited for him to resurface, dread crept into Rose's heart. Seconds turned into minutes, and still there was no sign of Oscar. Panic seized her as she frantically scanned the surface of the ball pit, calling out his name in a trembling voice. Other parents rushed to Rose's side, offering to help search for Oscar. Together, they combed through the ball pit, their hands digging through the balls in a desperate attempt to find him. But despite their efforts, Oscar remained elusive, lost in the labyrinthine depths of Adventure Playland. As Rose's cries grew more frantic, James's heart went out to her. He knew all too well the agony of losing a child, and he vowed to do everything in his power to help find Oscar. He enlisted the help of the other parents and coordinated with the authorities to comb through every inch of Adventure Playland with a fine-toothed comb. Together, they scoured every corner of the indoor playground, leaving no stone unturned in their quest to find Oscar. But as the hours stretched on and the sun began to set, hope began to fade. It was déjà vu for James. Police came and searched everywhere with no avail. James could see the horror in Rose's face, and all too familiar feeling. Yet James refused to give up. With each passing day, he pushed himself harder, driven by a relentless determination to bring Emily and Oscar home safely. But as the days turned into weeks, and then months, the search yielded no results. Adventure Playland remained a silent monument to the tragedy that had unfolded within its walls, its once vibrant atmosphere now suffused with an eerie sense of emptiness. Despite their best efforts, James and Rose were unable to unravel the mystery of the disappearing children. The fate of Emily and Oscar remained a haunting enigma, their whereabouts unknown, their stories destined to remain forever unresolved. As time passed, Adventure Playland faded into obscurity, its halls abandoned and forgotten, a solemn reminder of the darkness that lurked within its depths. And as James stood amidst the wreckage of the once bustling indoor playground, he couldn't help but wonder if he would ever find closure for the loss of his daughter, or if Adventure Playland would forever remain a place of unsolved mysteries and shattered dreams. 15 years had passed since Emily vanished into the depths of Adventure Playland, leaving James trapped in a nightmare from which he could never fully awaken. In those years, he had become a shell of his former self, haunted by the memory of his lost daughter and driven to the brink of madness by his relentless search for answers. But one day, as James sat alone in his dimly lit apartment, the phone rang, shattering the silence that had enveloped him for so long. With trembling hands, he picked up the receiver, his heart pounding in his chest as he heard the voice on the other end of the line. It was Rose, the mother of Oscar. They hadn't spoken in years. Their grief drove them apart as they struggled to come to terms with the loss of their children. But now, Rose's voice was filled with urgency and desperation, her words tumbling out in a rush as she spoke of a phone call she had received, a phone call from Emily. According to Rose, Emily had reached out to her out of the blue, claiming that she and Oscar were okay, that they were together and safe, and they wanted Rose and James to come to them, to finally be reunited after all these years. At first, James couldn't believe what he was hearing. It seemed impossible, a cruel trick of fate designed to torment him further, but as Rose spoke, he couldn't shake the feeling that there was something different about her voice, something that rang true. With a sense of both hope and trepidation, James agreed to meet Rose, his mind racing with questions and doubts. Could it be possible that Emily was still alive after all these years? And if so, what had happened to her and Oscar during their time apart? As he made his way to the meeting spot, James's heart pounded with anticipation, his mind filled with visions of Lily's smiling face and the possibility of finally being reunited with his daughter. But beneath the surface, a nagging sense of doubt lingered, a fear that this reunion might be nothing more than a cruel illusion. When James arrived, Rose was waiting for him, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and uncertainty. Without a word, she handed him a piece of paper, an address written with Lily's directions. With a sense of both excitement and trepidation, James and Rose set off towards the address, their hearts pounding with anticipation as they ventured into the unknown. Was this the moment he had been waiting for, the moment when he would finally be reunited with his daughter after all these years? But as they reached the address, their hopes were dashed. The building before them was old and dilapidated, its windows boarded up and its doors hanging off their hinges. It seemed abandoned, a forgotten relic of a bygone era. With a sinking feeling in his gut, James realized that there was no reunion waiting for him here. No happy ending to the story that had consumed his life for the past 15 years. As he stood in front of the derelict building, a sense of profound sadness washed over him. He had spent so long chasing after ghosts, so long clinging to the hope that Emily was still alive, that he had lost sight of the world around him. But as his head dropped down in sadness and turned to leave, a voice echoed in his mind, a voice that sounded strangely familiar, yet infinitely distant. It was Lily's voice, whispering to him from the depths of his memories, urging him to let go and move on. With a heavy heart, James realized that it was time to finally let go of the past, to release himself from the grip of grief and embrace the uncertainty of the future. And as he walked away from the abandoned building, he knew that he would carry Lily's memory with him always, a beacon of light in the darkness that had consumed his life for so long. As they turned around and started to head towards the street, there were two shadowy figures suddenly in front of them. James and Rose stood in disbelief as they came face to face with two strangers who claimed to be their long-lost children, Emily and Oscar. The resemblance was uncanny, the same eyes, the same smile. But it seemed impossible that these adults standing before them could be the same children who had vanished all those years ago. Tears welled up in James's eyes as he reached out to touch Lily's face, searching for any sign of the little girl he had lost. But as his fingers brushed against Lily's cheek, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off, that this reunion was too good to be true. Rose's heart pounded in her chest as she studied Oscar's face, searching for any trace of the young boy she had once known. But as she looked into Oscar's eyes, she couldn't shake the feeling of doubt that gnawed at her, whispering of the impossibility of this moment. "Where have you been all this time?" James asked, his voice trembling with emotion. Emily and Oscar exchanged a glance, their faces clouded with uncertainty. For a moment, they seemed hesitant to speak, as if unsure of how to answer the question that had haunted their parents for so many years. But then, with a sense of determination, Emily spoke. "We've been somewhere else," she said cryptically, her voice tinged with sadness. Oscar nodded in agreement, his expression troubled. "It's hard to explain," he added, his voice barely above a whisper. James and Rose exchanged a glance, their hearts heavy with a mixture of hope and doubt. Could it be possible that their children had truly returned to them after all these years? Or was this some cruel trick of fate, a mirage born from the depths of their grief-stricken minds? But as they looked into the eyes of Emily and Oscar, they couldn't deny the overwhelming sense of familiarity that washed over them, the feeling that these two strangers standing before them were somehow their children, no matter how impossible it seemed. With a sense of trepidation, James and Rose embraced Emily and Oscar, holding them close as tears of joy streamed down their faces. It didn't matter where they had been or what they had been through. All that mattered was that they were finally home. And as they walked away from the abandoned building, hand in hand with their children, James and Rose knew that their journey was far from over. There were still unanswered questions, still mysteries waiting to be unraveled. But for now, in this moment of reunion and reconciliation, they allowed themselves to bask in the warmth of their family's embrace, knowing that no matter what the future held, they would face it together as a family reunited at last.